Welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast with your host, Funk Roberts.
We are live, and welcome to the Over 40 Alpha Podcast. This is episode number 165, and I'm your host, Funk Roberts, former professional athlete turned fitness expert specifically for men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and this podcast is specifically for you, the man over 40, where we talk about relationships, we talk about health, we talk about fitness, workouts, nutrition, recovery, both mental and physical recovery. We talk supplements, we talk testosterone, we talk everything in regards to health and fitness for you, the man over 40. And today I'm really excited because we have Bernie Borges on our podcast to talk about living a fulfilled centric life, a fulfillment centric life. And when we talk about this, or when Bernie explains this to us, it's rooted in 5 key pillars, right? 5 key pillars that we need to be focusing on in our lives: our health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. And, this is a great, you're going to love this podcast because there's going to be a few moments and a few things that we learn that are definitely going to give you that aha, that enlightenment. He's also giving us some actual strategies that we can use to uncover if we're happy or fulfilled in whether it's our career or relationships or what have you. This is a must listen to or must watch podcast episode because Bernie, who is 67 years old, in fact, when he came on the screen, and we talked prior, I always figured he was younger than me. I thought he was maybe 53, because he looks so good. He's fit. He's healthy. He's 67 years old. Definitely an inspiration for me, 100%. I even talked about that later in the podcast. But, husband, father, podcaster of Midlife Fulfilled, which is a great podcast for you guys to check it out. He's a speaker. He's a workshop facilitator. He's an executive coach. He's got a program that's fulfillment centric leadership framework. And he's also the founder and CEO of Thrive Media. And he's taking all of his 30 years of leadership and marketing experience to try to understand communication, right? Because he does work with companies to help foster better workplace cultures. But a lot of this stuff that he teaches, specifically with the 5 pillars, also transfers over to everyday, right? Everyday life, us men, right? The 5 pillars that he talks about aren't just going to be buzzwords. They're literally a foundation for creating an environment for us, for creating the most fulfilled life that we can have. And so that we can value what we do, we can have purpose in what we do, whether it's in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, or wherever we are. Because after the age of 40, there are also different seasons in our life, right? Our 40s are going to be different than our 50s, and then things are going to change in our 60s, and then again in our 70s when we retire, if that we choose to. So understanding these 5 pillars are going to help us navigate through our life with purpose, with fulfillment, with value, and with a landscape that we can kind of navigate through, right? So I'm excited to have him on. And before we start this podcast episode, please, if you are listening to this right now and you are struggling with your health, or you're struggling with, motivation to get started in a fitness program, maybe you don't have relationships with other guys who are on the same journey, connection was thwarted during COVID. And we lost a lot of we were isolated more, and now it's affecting us mentally, some physically, some in our health. But if you're looking for a program specifically designed for the physiological changes that happen, T levels go down, muscle, we lose muscle, plus, there's all the other chronic stress with life and not knowing how to navigate or having the tools, then you have to join the Over 40 Alpha Brotherhood workout, nutrition, and life program. It's www.over40alpha.com. And for $1, I promise you, I will help you lose 5 to 20 pounds in 30 days for $1. But it's not just the weight. This program is based on the pillars, right? Based on mindset. So we're going to really truly change and foster a much healthier mindset. It's about recovery, both physical and mental. You know, we have mobility and yoga, plus we have mental resources, breathing and meditation, etc. Of course, workouts are key. Follow along workouts. So all you have to do is click play and you're actually working out with me. It's not like you have these demo videos. You have to figure out what exercise it is. No. Every single phase, there's 36 phases. That's 3 years, but we're just going to start with phase number 1. You just click play and you can work out with me anywhere at home. Cause you only need a couple of pairs of dumbbells. And if you don't even have equipment, you can use body weight. At the gym, you can use your computer or use the app, because I have an app. Of course, nutrition, because this nutrition is based on my best-selling Nutrition for Men Over 40. I'm pointing to a book right now. That's my best-selling book on Amazon, Nutrition for Men Over 40. The Menatest Boost Nutrition System. Listen, this is the easiest system to use. Over 15,000 men are in this program, and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Like I don't even know how many other thousands I can go, have transformed their lives. But the nutrition piece, which is generally hard for most people, I made it very, very simple. You just pick and choose. This is what I can eat. This is what I can't eat. And don't worry, because you're going to be able to eat very delicious, wholesome food. And you're going to be eating a lot of food to fuel your metabolism. We also have, of course, our supplementation piece. We have sleep. So sleep is a big pillar. It's extremely important. So a lot of focus is on sleep. But the most important part of the brotherhood, aside from the fact that you're going to get, transform your body, transform your health, and transform your life, is the brotherhood, the community. All of these men from all over the world, all on the same journey as you are. They've gone through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4. Or some guys are just starting like you are. They understand what you're going through. They understand the value. We don't judge. We don't talk politics. We don't talk religion. We don't talk pop culture. We support each other. We love each other. And this is how men need to be. We've got our own tribe. And so, having a program that's specifically designed for you, right? Scientifically designed, proven to work, hundreds and thousands and thousands. Second, a community. And third, you have connection with me, because we have coaching calls every single week. I'm live on those coaching calls every Friday. It's our coaching call, live coaching call. I answer your questions. Like, it's not like, oh, join this program and you're never going to see me. No, it's like, I'm probably going to see too much of me, from the workouts every day that you're doing, or the workouts that you do 3 to 4 times a week. And then me being in your face in the Facebook group, and then me being on a coaching call, you're going to have too much of me. Anyways, join it today. It's $1. It's like literally $1. If you listen, by day 29, if you don't freaking like what you see, then you can cancel and you don't have to worry about, other payments. Or if you get to the point where you forget or whatever, I'll give you your $1 back and I'll give you everything back. I don't want your money if you don't want to be in, but I guarantee you $1 is going to change your life. Anyways, over40alpha.com. Get there today. And with that, let's get on to the podcast. Enjoy this episode. Welcome to this episode. I'm really excited about this episode because, there are, the one thing about us men is A, we need purpose, and B, we have identities, right? And our guest today has a lot of identities that it's very important for us to lean into. Like, so he's a husband, he's a father, he's a podcaster. He's got a podcast called Midlife Fulfilled. He's a speaker, a workshop facilitator, and he's an executive coach. And it's really important for us guys to have those types of identities, but those identities don't work if we don't have purpose, or if we don't understand why we have that identity and what we need to lean into. And it really excites me because not only do these identities, kind of give this man a platform to do what he does, but he's also created or uncovered the 5 key life pillars that us midlife men need to follow and need to lean into. So today I'm super excited to have Bernie Borges, founder and CEO of Thrive Media, and he's the creator of Fulfillment-Centric Leadership Framework. Bernie, thank you so much for being on. And did I just destroy your last name or what?
Borges rhymes with gorgeous, like my wife.
Okay, we got it. I like it. Thank you for being on the podcast today. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Funk. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. And I have to tell you, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. I've listened to many episodes. In fact, I'll reference a few because it'll be relevant to our conversation.
That's great. Yeah. So let's start off with, you've talked about these 5 pillars, which we're going to dive into, but how did you come to this? What is your origin story? How did you kind of find these things, into your life?
Yeah. Love the question. So you mentioned that I'm a podcaster along with being a father and a husband and a business owner and a grandfather as well, 4 grandchildren. So I've been podcasting for 12 years and I was in between podcasts a little more than 3 years ago. And my previous podcasts were business podcasts. So I decided to do something on midlife, given the stage of life that I'm in, Funk. So I did some research on midlife podcasts and found that there were hundreds and hundreds of them. The vast majority of them, I would probably guess without exaggerating, 98 to 99% of the midlife podcasts that are out there are hosted by women and they're for women. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that, but I didn't want to do a podcast for men only like you do, which is a very specific purpose. I wanted to do something around the concept of fulfillment. So I dove into that. And that's how I discovered that we are all are on the same journey. Funk, we are on the same journey of life. And the way that I was able to kind of frame it up through my own life experiences is that that journey goes through 5 pillars. Now, these pillars, I think, apply to us in midlife, which I loosely define as over 40, and the internet agrees with me. So the 5 pillars are health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. And the first thing you might notice is that fitness is its own pillar, right next to health. And of course, health and fitness, we all know, go together. By the way, thank you for the education on high blood pressure and for the education on cholesterol. I mean, that's all part of our health, right? And it's very closely aligned to our fitness. But the point I'm getting at is that when we look at our life through the lens of those 5 pillars, we actually come to an awareness, a self-awareness that is a higher level of self-awareness than we previously had. Because, Funk, what I find is that people are trying to boil the ocean in their fulfillment, meaning like, oh, I need to be more fulfilled, or I'm not fulfilled. Where? What aspect of your life? Because here's a very common scenario, Funk. Someone's crushing it in their career and they're miserable in their relationships. So they're fulfilled in their career, but they're not fulfilled in their relationships. So I break out health and fitness specifically because health is humongous. It's physical and mental. That's big enough. We don't need to make it any bigger than that. And then I don't have to tell you, Funk, fitness is its own pillar because we, in this case, on your podcast, we guys, of course, it applies to both men and women, but on your podcast, we guys need to be fit, to be functional, to feel good, to have self-esteem. I was just listening to your podcast with Dane Pallarino and how he had the dad bod and, turned his whole life around by becoming self-aware that that was not what he wanted for himself and for his family.
Mm,
Right.
yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got to the 5 pillars. So let me pause there.
Yeah, no. So I love that. I love the pillars. I think health, fitness, the career, relationships, legacy, all bond together. One of the things that, I had a coaching call a couple of weeks ago. We talked about the wheel of life and ensuring that you're never going to have 100% balance because sometimes you're focusing on one thing or the other, but it's very important for us to at least touch on all of the things and making sure that we are fulfilling as much as we can at the point of what we're doing, each one of those pillars. Was there an aha moment in your life that led you to this? Because you obviously you have these 5 pillars, but what was life before you discovered these 5 pillars? Like, how was your life in your 30s how old are you right now?
I'm 67.
What? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh my. Okay. I thought you were way younger. So, when you say you hit the gym 5 days a week since 1990, this makes sense. I can see it in your face and your physique. Man, that's incredible. That's 67. That's I'm
I also have
inspired. I'm
good
motivated.
genes with a full head of hair.
You look
I can't take any credit for that.
you look fantastic. But there must have been an aha moment that you realized that these pillars are important for us as we get older, right? Did something happen when you were younger that brought you here?
So it's actually, Funk, the opposite of an aha moment, because an aha moment implies that it was a moment. It was the opposite of that. It's a concept known as incremental progress.
Hmm.
I had known about this concept unconsciously, but then I became consciously aware of it when I just did a little bit of research on it. I mean, just did a little bit of, Googling on it.
Yeah.
And it's something that over the span of time, and over the span of the time where I was doing certain activities, most notably recently, my Midlife Fulfilled podcast, where I was interviewing people. You and I have a date on the calendar to feature you on my Midlife Fulfilled podcast real soon. I think it's next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And over the course of the last 3 years, more than 200 episodes, it has been an education for me. So it's been the incremental progress where one day, Funk, I thought about, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We all learned that in school at some point in time. I said, somehow it doesn't fit in midlife. And so just through the benefit of the conversations, and I also did a research project last year, which contributed to it, and then just my own life experiences. And one day, I think, whether you call it divine intervention
Hmm.
or not, one day I just sat down with a pen and paper and just kind of wrote it out. I just wrote out these 5 pillars. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I mean, it just every aspect of our life
Mm.
is in these 5 pillars. In fact, let me touch on the relationship pillar for a moment,
Yeah,
because
let's
even
start
though
there.
it may seem obvious, and probably 99% of it is obvious, relationship spans many aspects of our life. But, I'm a person of faith, and I've been asked by others, Bernie, what about faith? Where does that fit in? Well, that's in the relationship pillar. So these 5 pillars really span every aspect of our humanity. And again, it was incremental progress, Funk. It wasn't
Yeah.
one day a light bulb going off.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. And the incremental progress is great because it's the journey, right? You understand that journey and you enjoy that journey. Now you talked about relationships, so let's start there. Let's start the relationships. What is part of the relationship pillar? What's involved in the relationships pillar?
Well, certainly it's the obvious ones like our immediate family, those we work with. I have next door neighbors. I have relationships with my next door neighbors. I'm a member of a church, so I've got relationships with people at church. I've got relationships with people that I network with. I'm big into networking. I do a lot of networking, both in person as well as on LinkedIn. So those are relationships. Now, there are different levels of relationships, right? And then, as I mentioned, the faith thing, that's a relationship with two. I have a relationship with God in prayer, that kind of thing. So it is multifaceted. And to the extent that we can just become self-aware of the multifaceted aspect of our relationships so that we can know where things are going well and where there might be some things that you need to work on.
Yeah. So unfortunately, a few years back, uh, we had COVID, and that severed many relationships based on the fact that we couldn't connect with a lot of people. We were isolated. That's one thing that kind of, because right now we are in an epidemic of mental health crisis. Men are suffering massively because there's no connection, right? I think this is really important, the relationships piece that you have here, because I've discovered a few things getting older and speaking to older men. Number one, as men get older, they become more lonely because they lose the relationships that they have. Whether it was their kids are gone from home now, some may have been divorced from their wife, or it's just the two of them. And in regards to the friends that we've had through life, specifically when we retire, right? Once you retire, you don't have those work friends that you used to see anymore, that work relationship. The friends that you probably grew up with, those guys have gone their own separate ways. And for most men, because of our pride or whatever it is, most men don't like to create new relationships, right? Because we try to feel like, oh, I got to protect myself, and like, can I really trust this person? And then we have our own burdens that we have to deal with that we've had over the last 60, 50, 60, 70 years. So it seems like as we get older, we don't have those connections that we need. We don't have those relationships. How can guys get those relationships, and how can you tell them how important those relationships are as we get older?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Funk. And relationships, impact every aspect of our life. So I what I encourage everyone to do is to look at these five pillars and ask yourself the following question. How fulfilled am I in, and each pillar, how fulfilled am I in my health, physical and mental? How fulfilled am I in my fitness and career and relationships and legacy? And then, depending on how you answer that question for relationships, relative how you answered that question for the other four pillars, that'll give you some insight into where things are going really well for you and where you might need to do some extra work. Because relationships is so multifaceted, right? There's the immediate family. It could be your wife for the guys, or like you said, maybe they're divorced. Maybe you have to have a relationship with the ex-wife in order to, be a good parent. The relationships at work. I think that, to your point about how we struggle with relationships, I think the benefit of having one or two really, really close relationships is amazing. I'm an only child. I didn't have any siblings, but I've got a guy in my life who is like my brother. And I don't just mean that. I mean, he was the best man at my wedding. He and I have literally known each other our entire life. And we're both the same age. We're both 67. And we literally have known each other since childhood. And he's like my brother. And that's a relationship that is, it's up there with my relationship with my wife, and obviously in a very different way. But a relationship like that, like if you don't have someone like that in your life, then not that you can go manufacture that overnight, Funk, because obviously that's not realistic.
Right.
But where can you develop a few close relationships where you can really lean on each other, hold each other accountable? And again, Funk, I want to emphasize, maintain the perspective of that is one of the five pillars.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Don't make that in your entire life, even though it's very important. But maintain that perspective. You got five pillars. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And when you're focusing on your relationships, do it in the context of these are the five pillars.
Yeah, no, we're definitely going to break down the pillars, but I just want to stay a little bit more in this relationship piece because it is it's something that comes up a lot for in my group, in my membership. It's one thing that men don't even know how to create a relationship. They don't know, because when you're so disconnected from again, like some guys just go to work, they get it done, they got the guys at work, hey Joe, hey Bill, but there's no real connection with those people. They're just work friends, right? That's a different type of relationship. They may not have a good relationship with their wife, and again, the kids are gone. So is there and you said it's good to have that one or two close relationships. Now, what if we have none at the moment? And like, do you have any tips for or places that we can go? That's why first of all, that's why I have the brotherhood, because I understand how freaking important it is to have to connect with people on the same journey, like-minded people on the same journey. But are there any tips on how to look for or where to look for that relationship as a man, having another guy or whomever it is to be that bond and to foster that bond?
Yeah. Being in a setting where you've got something in common
Yeah.
is a great place to start. Being a member of some kind of community where the reason that you're there is because you have the same value, right? So I mentioned I'm a member of a church. That can be one setting, but I'll tell you another setting that's been a huge part of some relationships that I've built over the years. And I don't think this is going to surprise you. And that's the gym.
Yeah. Okay.
I have a good buddy, name is Greg, that I've known not quite as long as I've known Ray. I've known Ray my entire life. I've known Greg for, let's call it 35 years. We met in the gym. We're still friends to this day. And by the way, I live in Florida and he lives in California. And we
Wow.
still talk probably once every 3 months, give or take. One of us picks up the phone and we stay in touch with each other. And we have deep, meaningful conversations. And I
Mm.
met him at the gym.
Yeah.
So the point is, don't be a hermit. Don't be a loner. Physically go somewhere where
Mm.
you are a member of a community and that community exists for whatever that purpose is, and you value that. And then that's a great place to build relationships.
I love it. I love it. So let's segue. I love that, and I think for all guys out there, definitely getting off your butt and getting out there and getting uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable for guys to go out there and kind of, hey, how you doing? Not for me, but I'm a different breed. So since you met Greg in the gym, why don't we segue into fitness? How does the fitness pillar fit into our lives?
Yeah. So I think at this stage of our life, it really is about self esteem, which is mental. Then the physical side is just about being functional. And what I mean by being functional is if you're in your 40s, you can probably do whatever you need to do, but it won't be long before you're in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. And being functional means being able to do the things you want to do on a daily basis. Get out of bed, sit on the toilet, get on an airplane and put your luggage, on the rack above you. Just simple things that you might take for granted today that being fit today are going to contribute to that longevity. Bone density is a big part of that, right? Blood flow. I mean, you schooled us on high blood pressure and cholesterol recently, right? And as you know, Funk, you know very well that when you have the mindset of being very disciplined in your fitness, then you also are very likely to have the mindset of having good nutrition, good sleep, and all those things that contribute to the health. But it really is about that perspective of just being functional as well as just the self-esteem. Reflecting back on your conversation with Dane Pallarino, how he felt after his photo was taken. And he said he didn't even see himself that way.
Hmm.
And that's that self-awareness. And then on the other side of that, once he devoted himself to fitness and he looks amazing today, and now that self-esteem that's there. So there's the mental side of self-esteem and the health side. Those two really are the big aspects of our fitness that we need to be considering in our 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond.
I love that you said, yeah, in your 40s and 50s, you can, you're doing a lot of things that, you take for granted. But when you get into your 60s and 70s, that's when things start to become like, oh, okay, my back hurts, or I can't get out of bed, or my knee, or my shoulders. I can't even do this. Like I tell this story, and no disrespect to the guy who lives across the street from me. He's amazing. I love him. Lawyer, went to Duke University, love him. But when him and his wife had just bought some big armoire, and he's younger than I am. I think he's in his 30s, and I was across the street and I saw them struggling to get this thing even through the door. So I just go out and just, I kind of went out and I said, hey, let me help, let me help. And it was the wife and I who took that up. The
Yeah.
husband kind of left back, and I could see her kind of like, oh, I can't believe he couldn't help, and I could see him feeling the way he felt, right? So I mean, I didn't push. I'm like, yeah, no worries, no worries, I got this.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with a couple trying to move their bed from one house to another house over here because they moved. They were struggling to move the bed, so I just went down and I relieved the wife and moved it. But it's kind of like I'm able to do that. I'm 56, but I want to still be able to do that when in my 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I have guys inside the brotherhood. Shout out to Craig Morfitt. Shout out to Don Cameron. These guys are in their late 60s and 70s, and they're crushing it still. And they're going hiking, and they're doing like it's not about being shredded and having a six pack in your even in the late 50s. Like I'm at the point now where my recovery is way more important because I want to hike and I want to do things when I'm in my 60s, 70s, 80s when I retire. So I think when you said functional, it's so important. It's so important.
Yeah. I'll share a quick story. A
Yeah.
few months ago, again, I live in Florida. In my backyard, on the end of my backyard, then begins the woods. and a small tree fell over from the woods into what is my property. Again, a small tree. So, one Saturday I went out there with some gloves in my hands to pick it up and move it back into the woods, out of my property and into the woods.
Mm.
So I braced myself, I crouched, supporting my back with my legs. I grabbed it underneath, and I pulled it up underneath, my core, and I had it. And then about 2 seconds into it, Funk, I lost my grip and the tree was about to fall out of my hands, which in itself is not a problem because it's going to land on the floor. But at the same time, I lost my balance. So
Mm.
in this split second, I'm about to do a face plant onto this tree trunk. And there's little branches sticking out of it. So that face plant could have punctured some, my torso, that kind of thing. Instead, I used both of my hands and I just landed and cushioned myself on the floor, and my body never touched that tree trunk. And I just cushioned myself kind of in a push up position. And I was able to do that in the moment because I'm fit,
Yeah. Not
you
only
know?
just fit, but the repetitive exercising that you do made it almost like, oh, I know what I got to do here. I got to get to this push-up position, which I've done, hundreds of times since 1990. But yeah, you're fit. Exactly. It's not like you're falling down you're walking your dog. I see that often. And all of a sudden the dog goes crazy. And next thing you know, you're face planted. You're a 40, 50-year-old man walking a dog. And now you're on the ground. Like, how not only embarrassing, but how demasculating does that feel? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And not to mention, if someone does something to you or your family, you can't do anything. Like I don't tell it to them, but we have a little community here, and I'm kind of like the community, hey guys, let's go get together, and we talk and whatever. And oftentimes I look and I'm like, look, man, like if I walk up to your wife and I do something to your wife, what are you gonna do about it? There's nothing you can do about it because I'm bigger, I'm stronger, I'm more fit, I'm martial arts, and you can't protect. And it's like a lot of times it's just that kind of goes, now he's in the gym all the time, right? Because it's just those little tiny things that you just need. You can tell people you need more sleep. You can tell people, oh, you're just overweight, you got to lose weight. Like there's so many different things. But when it comes to protecting your family and the fact that you can't, sometimes there's that little spark that goes, oh yeah, he's right. I can't protect. I can't. I mean, if he ran, I couldn't even run after him, right? So I love the function, the fitness, not just for today, but for tomorrow that you talk about. And I love how that's such an important pillar out of your five. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. A lot of it does come back to mindset, though. The last point you just made is definitely physical, but that's also the mindset, right? Like having again, come back to self-esteem and the self-awareness of, what you're going to be capable of doing if a situation calls for. When you're out in public, you never know what's going to happen, what's going to go down, and, what you need to step up and do to support that. So, the purpose of fitness being one of the five pillars is to, again, have the context, the perspective of where it fits in your life. I don't think I don't think you would disagree with me on this, Funk, even though, fitness is your thing, it's your jam, but fitness shouldn't be everything. It shouldn't be your entire life. And that's why I say it's one of the five pillars. It is clearly important, especially over 40, but maintaining that perspective and understanding where it fits in your life is something that will really contribute to your mindset so you know how to approach it.
Yeah. So speaking of the fitness, let's just dive into health. And, so they're so closely related, but in some senses they're not, right? Like the fitness side, some people think it's like going to the gym and the nutrition part, but where does health fit as a pillar? And why is that so important for us?
Well, again, health is both physical and mental.
Hmm.
And most of us, I'm generalizing here, Funk, but most of us are still working. And so imagine trying to work when your health is severely compromised. And while there are certain aspects of our health that we can control, there are also aspects of our health that we can't control, whether it's a hereditary illness or an accident, and all of a sudden, you're dealing with a serious injury, maybe you're even permanently disabled. That's a health issue, and you can't control that if you were, the victim of an accident or even the victim of something else, right? But it impacts every aspect of our life. So just walking around life, operating life with the perspective of, okay, I'm going to do everything that's within my control to maximize my physical and mental health so that I can also concentrate on my fitness and be as fit as I can be so that I can be my best in the career in my career so that I can bring the best version of myself to all of my relationships. And I know we haven't touched on it yet, also so I can think about my legacy. Who am I going to impact? How am I going to impact that person or that cause or that whatever that thing is? But all the way back at the front end of that is health. If our health is compromised, then it impacts everything downstream from that. And again, I want to repeat what I said a moment ago about how there are aspects of our health that we can control, and then there are aspects that we can't control. So whatever any one of us individually is dealing with, we have to deal with it within our own unique circumstances and then but deal with it as best we can consciously. Funk, I have this big emphasis on being a conscious competent, right? I think I mentioned earlier that I was, an unconscious competent in some ways going about my life until the incremental progress thing kicked in for me. And I'm like, okay, now all of a sudden this is coming together. Like the dots are connecting. And I went from being an unconscious competent on, how we approach life to a conscious competence saying we need to approach life across these 5 pillars, right? So it's the same thing when we're dealing with our health. Let's be a conscious competent in how we deal with our health.
Okay, so I love Conscious Competent. You should get a T-shirt called Conscious Competent. That's a brand. Get a T-shirt, and sell it. Conscious Competent. That's one of your T-shirts you gotta sell because we gotta monetize. Okay, so there's lots of things that are going on here with health, specifically mental health, because this is the for me when I look at the years I've been doing this and how many men are affected. You know, mental health is huge, and I kind of alluded to this, that every man has a burden that they carry that no one knows because the burden is inside. They keep it inside. Us men, we generally keep it inside. We feel weak if we try to expose ourselves by trying to ask for help or look for help, and so we don't look for help and we don't ask for help. And depending on the culture, and it seems like every single culture, when it comes to man, the masculinity, it's almost the same. You got to be tough, you got to be strong, you can't show weakness. And for most men, when we reach 40, 50, testosterone levels are down now, hormones are all over the place. Again, relationships are starting to sever, and not saying sever in the fact that they're gone forever. It's just like when you have kids in the house and you get the wife and you get everyone, the relationships are much more physically there, right? You can lean on those relationships when you're not feeling good. Right? You can always go, oh, I don't feel good. I don't know why I feel this way. But there's my kid. Okay, let's go play, or let me take you somewhere. But when everyone's gone and you're left by yourself and you're in your 50s and you're just on the end of your career, now you're retired or wherever you're at, and you haven't dealt with the mental health issues that may have happened when you were younger, or maybe some trauma that had happened through your life. And now we're at a point where we can't control, because we can push it down for so long, but then we can't control it when all of these other things are happening physiologically and mentally. That's a massive issue. What do you think? Like, how can men deal with this mental health issue? Do you have any tips or strategies on this, seeing that the health part of your pillar is important?
I'm going to come back to the something we already discussed, and that is really finding one or two people.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it has to be one or two, and maybe it's 5, but at least one person that you can just really confide in. When I was listening to your episode with Dimitri, I think it's Giankoulis, that father-son story, and he told the story, and then also, one of my takeaways, there were many takeaways, but one of my takeaways is that he and his wife are very close, very strong relationship. In my case, I've got a good marriage, but I don't have the intimacy from a conversation standpoint with my
Mhm.
wife than I do with my friend Ray and my
Yeah.
friend Greg. Like I can talk to them about anything,
Mm.
anything, and they're going to listen first and foremost. Let me start there. They listen, and then they're going to give me their honest perspective. And I can't tell you, like, I can't put a price on that. I can't tell you how valuable that is to me.
Yeah.
So it does come back to that. And, for some guys, Funk, that might be hard,
Yeah.
to find if they don't have somebody like that. It might be hard because you don't just develop a relationship in a week to
Mm.
have those kinds of, really close conversations.
Mm.
But if you pour yourself into a relationship,
Mm.
and as long as that person is willing to listen and pour some of themselves into you over some span of time, then that intimacy, and obviously in this context here, intimacy means the ability to have deep, meaningful conversation
Mhm.
that is meaningful and helpful to both people.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think one of the things that I emphasize inside the brotherhood, the community that we have, because these are men from all over the world, right? All racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds from all over the world, and they're telling each other they love each other, and they support each other, because one of the biggest things is, they're like you mentioned, in the relationships piece, they're all on the same journey, so there's that understanding. Number two, we don't talk politics, really. Like, we don't look at our differences, we look at our similarities. We're all on the same journey. We're not talking politics, we're not talking religion or any of that stuff. We're just focusing on this journey, but we're also going to support each other. And one of the things that is really important for us is non-judgment, because I emphasize that we all have stuff, right? So no one's mightier than anybody else. We all have something. And but if you can come in and literally just pour your heart out on whatever you're struggling with, whatever has happened in your life, and know that you're not going to get guys saying suck it up, but get guys saying, hey, we're here for you. That's such an important piece of being able to deal with some mental health issues, and also having trust that, okay, maybe I can foster relationships, not necessarily inside this community, but when you have a taste of that, it's almost like you can go out and now start to feel like you can trust people a little bit more, although guys tend not to trust as quickly. But yeah, I agree that having one or two people that you can confide with is so important. So
And you
important.
said something, Funk, that I want to come back to. You said that these guys say to each other that they love each other.
Yeah.
And I never realized how powerful it is to say to a guy, I love you, brother.
Mm.
And then for that guy to say it back and say, I love you, brother. Like, I can't tell you how powerful that is, how meaningful that is, how emotional that is, and how bonding that is. And, if you're a guy listening and you don't have a guy in your life that you can say that to and who would say that to you, then do everything within your human capacity to find a guy where you can get to that in a conversation. And you'll really feel that impact.
Even if you are the one that if you truly love this person, you're the one that says that first. Because I say that to many of my friends, because I do. I love them. I love however the relationship that we have. I always end off our call. I usually call people. I use call or a conversation. Love you, man. Love you, brother. Love you. And that is just like they say it back, even because it's like, oh shit, okay, this person loves me. Oh man, I love you too, man. You know what I mean? Like those things like start to come up, and then it just becomes like common, and it's real, right? It's not just saying it out of the sake of saying it. It's literally real, and those are the type of emotions and things that we need to tap into. Because if anyone in your life is valuable to you, specifically at our age, man, you gotta love, brother. You gotta love like that. I mean, love conquers everything, and the more you can love, the more you see the positive in it. So I love
Yeah.
that. Okay, so let's move to career, because this is a big one, I think. How is career? What? Because there's different phases. So help us navigate through the career pillar and then the different phases of the career, meaning right in it, almost done, done.
Yeah. This is another big one because, we spend, I think it's 2/3 of our waking state in a workplace, right? In career. And for a lot of us, maybe not all of us, Frank, but for a lot of us, when we get into our midlife seasons, and I use that phrase intentionally, seasons, I think we go through midlife seasons,
Mm,
right? Like I'm in my 60s, which is a different season than when I was in my 40s, even though in my
right.
40s, I was already in a midlife season, but I'm in a different season now in my mid 60s. But for a lot of us, Funk, we wake up one day and just go, oh, I don't think I'm all that fulfilled in my career anymore. Although people tend to use the word happy, and we can go down that rabbit hole because I
Sure.
think happiness is overrated. And I can give you some data to back that up. That fulfillment
Okay.
is the
You do.
second most powerful emotion, second only to love, which means it's more powerful than happiness. But I digress a little bit. On the career thing, a lot of us experience, whether you want to call it reinvention or transformation or the desire to, and it can be a challenge for a lot of guys, Funk, because a lot of guys have been doing something for 20, 30 years,
Mhm.
and maybe that's all they know, and they've been trained, they've been educated, they've gained all, decades of experience and expertise on the thing that has been their career. And many times they wake up one day and they just say, this isn't doing it for me anymore.
Mhm.
Right. And so this is where I say there's a simple exercise. I'm not saying it's a simple exercise to do, but it's a simple exercise.
Okay.
And it's the following. And that is write down what all your values are and then align those values with your current level of fulfillment in each of the pillars. But we're talking about career right now. So I'll give you an example. If one of your values is to be home for dinner every night because you have a family, whether your kids are there or not, doesn't matter. But a value is to be home for dinner, maybe being able to go to certain events in the evening during the week, whether it's a community event or a family event, whatever it may be. But if you're in a career where either it's very demanding and you have to work long hours, or you have to travel a lot and you're not able to satisfy that value, you're misaligned. So
Mhm.
the exercise, the simplicity of the exercise is list your values and then correlate that to where you are in your career. Where it gets complex is when you begin to realize that you may have some misalignment
Mm.
and you then think, okay, well, how am I going to deal with this? If I've written down, say, 5 values and 3 of them are not aligned with my current career, this is where people often will do something dramatic. I just saw a gentleman that I know casually. He's not a close personal friend, who was the CEO of a company. And he just announced on LinkedIn that he left that company. He said, I wasn't fired. I didn't leave because anything bad happened. He said, I just woke up one day and just finally admitted to myself that I'm not fulfilled, that I need to go figure out what's going to fulfill me at this stage in my career.
I love that.
You know? And so he probably either consciously or unconsciously, I haven't spoken to him, but he either consciously or unconsciously went through that exercise, that mental exercise of what are my values
Mhm.
and how do they align or not with my current career. So it's
Yeah.
a simple exercise, but the complexity, the challenge is sort of the slap in the face if you have a lot of misalignment.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be an enlightening exercise because you're going to honestly look and see, okay, if you haven't been happy, right? Because I know fulfillment is more important, and what happens is, the word happy gets used when people are like, oh, man, I'm unhappy with my job. I hate my job. I hate my this, and I hate this person. I hate this person. I hate this person. But they never do this exercise, and when they write that down, they see, oh, the reason why this is not working right now, even though I've been doing it for 30, 40 years, I'm in a different season now, right? Because seasons maybe early in the season in his life, in his 30s, he's trying to get to management or something, right? So a little bit different mindset there. Values are trying to get to management. Now he's in his 40s, didn't get the management job, by the way. Or now at the management job, it wasn't what they thought it was going to be like, right? Because sometimes you think, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money. It's going to be great. But now it's more work and more customer service, more this, more that, more babysitting. And it's like, man, this is not what I thought it was going to be. This is not where I want to be. But instead of saying that, they're like, I hate this, I hate that, I hate that. This exercise is massive because I did this exercise in my 40s. And I left a six-figure job. Literally, I just won a President's Club award, and I was senior management, in the staffing side of this business. And man, my heart was telling me, and my values were going more towards being an entrepreneur and running my own company and doing fitness stuff. And I walked into my president's office without even telling my wife. And I said, hey, man, I quit. And the cool thing is, and the good thing is, they were very, very supportive because everyone was on my fitness newsletter, and they always ask me, hey, Vaughn, how do I do this? What do I do?
Right.
How do I eat? Right. So it's kind of like not that they knew, because when you just finished winning a President's Club and, all of this stuff, but just it was out of the blue. And I didn't even tell my wife until I came home, when she saw me coming home early. But those are the type of things that yes, it's scary, but man, I'm way happier now, right? I'm so much happier now. And it's funny you just said the writing stuff down, and kind of like people have been in a long job, because like I have two guys that come to my mind inside my brotherhood, Brandon and David. Brandon, one who's been in a career for so many years. Now he's a trainer. Like, I mean, I think he's doing that part-time as well, but it's just like, oh, this is okay. Not as fulfilling as it used to be. This is where my passion lies, right? So I think it is extremely important on that sense in the careers.
Yeah. Yeah. Buck, I would like to elaborate a little bit on why I say that fulfillment is huge and it's different than happiness. Um, Pretty simple explanation here, and that is that happiness is an emotion, and it's a great emotion. We all want to be happy. When my favorite sports team wins, I'm happy, but then the next day I'm kind of moving on. Now it's a slight example, small example, right? There's a lot of reasons you can be happy, but it's an emotion, and it's an emotion that can be very fleeting. Fulfillment is a different emotion. It is usually associated with some level of achievement. And as such, because it's usually associated with achievement, there's two aspects of it. One is it's deeper. It is deeper in our soul than happiness. Happiness is sort of a higher level, more surface level emotion. Again, it can be fleeting. I can be happy 1 minute and not happy 5 minutes later. Fulfillment, when I achieve something that is deeper in my soul, that's aspect number one. Aspect number two is that most of the time it's immutable, meaning nothing can take that away. So, simple example, when I got my college degree, I did most of my college education at night. So it was a 7-year journey for me. So when I completed my college education and got my degree, the fulfillment that I got from that was huge, and it's immutable. Nothing can take that away. So that's just one example. A simple example, that's a big one, right? Because you can have big achievements. A small one is I have a goal of getting to the gym 5 days a week. So on Fridays, by 8 o'clock, when I'm back home, I go, okay, did it. I'm fulfilled. I got to the gym 5 days this week. If your goal is 3 days in a week and you're doing that, that's a small level of fulfillment, right? So fulfillment is different. It's not in replacement of happiness by any means. And I mentioned some research I did last year. I did a research report called Thriving in Midlife, and it's available on my website at midlifefulfilled.com. It's free. It's a free download. And one of the questions we asked is, if you could only be fulfilled or happy, which one would you choose?
Mm,
And almost 80% chose fulfillment.
of course.
79.2% chose fulfillment. And in the survey, we gave a clear definition. Here's what happiness is, and here's what fulfillment is. If you could only choose one, which would you choose? 79.2 chose fulfillment. And then there's two other data points in there that correlate back to that. One question asked, are you satisfied in your career? 75% said, yes, I'm satisfied in my career. The other question, many questions later, not like following the same question, but many questions later, are you fulfilled in your career? 61% said they're fulfilled. So 75% said they're satisfied in their career. 61% said they're fulfilled in their career. 14-point difference. Why? Because fulfillment is a higher standard.
Mm, totally. That's an aha right there for sure. Um, because yeah, it's the fulfillment piece, the purpose. Like for me, I'm in my last semester at Harvard. I'm doing my master's degree. Third year is my third year. I'm doing my master's. Got my I just got my midterm marks, and man, am I fulfilled. Not even happy because I thought that I bombed the midterm. I got 94%. So I'm like, it's just like, there was a little bit of anxiety after I wrote it. And then when I got the marks yesterday, I was like, okay, wow, that's like, because, of the journey of studying and doing all that stuff for this midterm. And now we only have one thing left. But that will, at the end of May, I'll have real big fulfillment because I'll have a master's degree in business innovation and entrepreneurship.
That
But
is awesome, Funk.
thank
That
you.
is going to be a huge fulfillment for you. And I do hope that you'll share that with your community so we can all help you celebrate because
Oh yeah,
that's going to be an awesome achievement.
I've taken them through the full 3 years, man. They've gone ups, downs. They know, they know everything. But the fulfillment piece is so important over the happiness. And I have to agree with you 100%. I think this is a must for every single person. I think is writing this down, write down your values, and versus the career you're in, and seeing if they align. I think that's great. Let me ask you another question about men who are at the end of their career and versus men who are retired. Like how, if you've retired, where does the career piece fit in? Are you looking for something else, more purpose, maybe doing something different in your retirement, specifically if you're healthy? Because I also find that when the guys get healthy, when the guys get fit, right? And obviously when you're healthy and fit and you get sleep, your relationships maybe start to get a little bit better, but then they're more open to like career change and stuff, right? Like, or being able to do stuff when they retire. What do you think about the person who's just retired and the person who's at that point?
Sure. Well, two thoughts on that, Funk. One is that is a very individual choice that each of us is going to make. So I can't generalize, across the spectrum of, all men, right? I'll tell you what I do see a lot of. So this is anecdotal, but I've seen a lot of this, and that is a combination of I retired, and 3 or 6 months later, I realized that retirement's not for me. I'm bored, and so I want to go back to work. Whether it's back to what they were doing before, or they embark on something entirely new. I see a lot of that. The other thing that I see is, and again, this is anecdotal, but I see it a lot, is whether they call it work or not, they're just doing something that has purpose and it gives them fulfillment. So whether it's a volunteer thing or whatever it may be, where they are using their life experiences, the skills that they've developed over the decades, in their career, and they're applying that somewhere else. So they're giving it as a gift to the world in some little corner of the world in some way, and it gives them fulfillment. And I think, and again, this is another anecdotal comment, but you've probably heard this as well. But someone who retires and does nothing, and I'd love to see data on this, but on average, I hear that those people die in 3 years.
Mm, yeah.
Because we're wired to have a purpose. We are just wired that way. So, my father-in-law is 95 and he's relatively healthy for a 95-year-old man. Let me tell you what his purpose has been the last, I think, 40 years now. He is the president of a local community theater. It's in California. So, as the president, he oversees a small little board. They're all volunteers, by the way. Nobody
Yeah.
gets a paycheck, right? And they put on about 4 plays a year. So he oversees the licensing of plays because they have to be licensed, they have to be purchased, the selling of tickets. I'm saying overseas. He's not doing it all. And then, the recruiting of actors, the rehearsals, building sets. Now, building sets, he is hands-on because that's his skill. He's a very handy guy. So he's, on ladders doing that kind of thing, although he's been supervised these days not to
Not
climb
to.
ladders because of his age. But Funk, the purpose that he has had doing that has kept him going. And he's 95, he's going to be 96 in July.
Yeah, for sure.
And technically, he's been retired for the last 30 years. Technically.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. I mean, that's a great story. And again, that's the testament to having purpose and the testament to, I guess you got to stay healthy in order to just climb those ladders at 95, 100%. So let's move on to this last one, which is legacy. And this one to me, again, is one of the best, probably for me, it's what is a driver for me. So explain to us legacy and how that fits in to the pillars.
The definition of legacy in the dictionary has your picture next to it.
I love you, man. I love you, Bernie. I love
You're
you.
living it, Funk. You're living it. Legacy is simply, what impact do you want to have on fill in the blank?
Right.
What impact do you want to have on one human being? What impact do you want to have on a family, a cause, an industry? Whatever it is, what impact do you want to have? And it's not limited to one thing. You can want to have an impact on multiple things, but having a passion for it. So you're living it through your podcast and your community, your amazing community. I'm now living it now only recently in the last 3 years through my Midlife Fulfilled podcast by bringing this message to the world of chase fulfillment across the 5 key life pillars. And when you have self-awareness around that, then you're better equipped to actually experience more fulfillment. And so that is part of my legacy. I also have, I mentioned I have 4 grandchildren, that sort of thing. So there's more than one legacy goal in my life. And, I've shared one big one in what I'm doing with my Midlife Fulfilled podcast and community, but I've got personal ones as well that are family related. It's all about just that. What impact do you want to have on fill in the blank?
Is there a like a exercise that we can do in order to uncover legacy? Because I guess some, if I ask guys what legacy do you want to leave, the number one thing they're going to say is I don't know, right? I know if I asked the 50 of the guys who come to my brotherhood coaching calls every week, probably 35 of them would say I don't know. So is there some type of a something that we can do to help uncover this?
Yeah, it's the following. I didn't invent this. I'm sure you've heard this. So when I say this, you'll go, oh yeah, I've heard that before. And that is, imagine you are attending your funeral. What are people saying about you?
I love it.
Just, write that down. Like, what are people saying? How are they remembering you?
Yeah.
And who's at your funeral? Is it just immediate family, or is it people beyond the scope of your immediate family? Who are they? What aspects of your life are they? And by the way, funerals these days very commonly have a Zoom feed in. So there's people physically at the funeral event, and there's people that are Zoomed in.
Yeah.
So who's at your funeral? And where were they in your life? What dimension of your life were they in? And what are they saying about you and their remembrance of you? Simple exercise.
That's amazing. Yeah, definitely take that up as well. This has been great. I mean, I think the 5 pillars, again, health, fitness, career, relationship, legacy, are super, super important. We definitely learned the difference between fulfillment and happiness. That's big because even in my group, somebody in my group wanted to do something about happiness, and we're like, nah, man. no, man. We're not doing happiness, okay? But it's very clear now that the fulfillment is here. What are some of the non-negotiables that men should be focusing on in regards to implementing these pillars, right? I mean, you touched on the fact that you since 1990 you've been to the gym, or you work out, or you exercise 5 days a week. That's like 35 years that you've been doing this. But there must have been some type of non-negotiable sacrifices that you have to make in order to keep that thing going consistently. So do you have non-negotiables that men should start to think about in regards to the pillars?
I had an experience that was a little similar to what Dane Pallarino shared when that photo was taken of him.
Yeah.
I was in my early to mid 20s. I think I was 24. And I had just graduated college because I went at night. So I was 24 when I graduated. So I've kind of felt like I had all this freedom and free time on my hands. I wasn't going to school at night anymore. So what did I do? I went out to the bars with my
Mhm.
friends from work every night. And that didn't last too long, maybe a handful of months, couple of months, give or take. I woke up one day in the middle of the week to go to work and I looked at myself in the mirror, bare chested, and I didn't like what I saw.
Mm.
I did not like what I saw. Unlike the incremental progress experience that I shared with you earlier, no, this was an immediate light bulb that, like, I just said, no, done,
Mm.
done. Immediately from that moment forward, I just said, Jim, good diet, losing this little belly I had, gaining some muscle, not big, but just muscle definition,
Mhm.
having a V shape. Then in my 20s, I could do that. The V is not quite as V as it now that it was then, but that was it. And I've never lost that motivation. Even though I've been married 37 years, it's not
Yeah.
like I want to look good for other women. I'm married,
Right.
but I want it for me, Funk. I want it for me. That's to me is non-negotiable. Totally non-negotiable, full stop.
If I don't know if you will remember this, but when you looked at yourself in the mirror, what do you remember the feelings that you had when you saw yourself like that?
Shame.
Yeah.
Yeah, shame. And also like self-accountability, like, hey, I brought this on myself. I mean, like, duh, I'm going out drinking every night and I'm
Yeah.
eating crap food. Of course I look like this
Right.
then, back when I was 24.
Yeah.
So it was like, okay, well, obviously doing that resulted in the way I look. So I needed to just completely, start fresh, new, and take a whole new approach to my fitness life and my health as well.
Do you remember what that how like was there something that like at the very beginning it's always hard to make the change, right? Like to change from like going out drinking all the time and eating shitty, all of a sudden you see yourself and like was there something that you used to help you get through the first 1, 2, 3, 4 months before it became a habit? Do you remember? I know that's a long time ago, but
Yeah. Um, I mean, the first thing I did, Funk, was I joined the gym. And, back to what we were discussing earlier, when I was at the gym, I was with people who had the same value, the shared value of working out to feel good, look good, and that's I also discovered that I can meet people here and
Mm.
develop relationships with people here, you know
Yeah.
so it was the motivation, so it was a little bit social, but that wasn't the primary, that was very secondary. The primary was I wanted to get and stay in shape, and it just became non-negotiable. But really the turning point was just joining and going to the gym.
Right.
And the funny thing is, in those days I was going after work at night. It was only after my daughter was born, which was in also in 1990. So that age 24 actually was born before 1990, by the way. That was like
Yeah.
mid 80s.
80s. Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
figured.
but when my daughter was born in, I think 92 or 93, I don't remember. That's when I started going early in the morning. And I remember thinking, nobody's going to be there. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah, totally. Like, two busiest times, early in the morning and 5 o'clock after work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But once I made the switch, because, once we had a newborn at home, I wasn't going to go after work. And I made the switch to the mornings, and I've been going ever since.
The fact that you had how many kids do you have?
Two, two. And like you, 30s and 20s.
Right, right. So the fact that you have two kids, but when you had your newborn, you still went to the gym. What kept you? I'm just prying here. What kept you going to the gym? What was that like? Again, this is an excuse that most new fathers make, right? Oh, I got a new kid, and that's definitely 100%. But what kept you going to the gym? What made you change from night to morning instead of saying, you know what, I can't go to the gym anymore because I only go at night. Now I have a newborn, I can't go to the gym. But you didn't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. So I would say there's two reasons. One is, to be fully transparent, vanity. Like, I didn't want to lose the shape that I was
Mhm.
in,
Mhm.
you know? I didn't want to. I vividly remember what I looked like that morning that I woke up when I was 24 and I looked in the mirror. I remember that. And I'm like, I am not going back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So vanity, I didn't want to lose that. I wanted to stay fit. The other is I realized, Funk, that the other benefit of a morning workout is when I, hit my desk or wherever I was going to work, I was alert. I had energy. I was ready for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like I felt good.
Yeah.
And if for some reason something happened and I couldn't work out or didn't work out in the morning, big difference.
Yeah.
Energy level, concentration level, not the same, not the same.
Mm.
So combination of vanity and I like how I feel after I work out. I'm ready for the day.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so inspired by you, man. The fact, you're still doing it. You look absolutely incredible. You're 12 years older than I am, and you look younger than I do, and you're 12 years older than I am. I'm not even joking. I'm not saying this to blow smoke up your butt. I'm literally saying, I'm looking at you right now, and I honestly thought you were like, oh, this guy's probably 53, maybe 52, because you're doing the midlife thing. So I figured you'd be in your 40s or 50s.
Right.
To hear that you're 67 and to see what you're doing and the legacy that you're leaving, and this is just, it's incredible. It's motivating, it's inspiring, it's a testament to the hard work and the dedication and the focus that you have. And even through all the different things that happen in life, man, it's you are a beacon of health on all levels. You're a beacon of health, fitness, relationships, career, and legacy. So I give you your flowers. I'm giving you your flowers before you go. But if the listeners can take one thing from what we've talked about today and what you shared, what do you think is the single most important piece of advice that you could give a guy listening to right now?
Well, first of all, thank you for your flattery. I appreciate that. And so I work at staying as young as I can possibly feel and look. I'd say the one thing that I would encourage guys to think about is, your own self-awareness, which is synonymous with self-esteem. Be self-aware of your fulfillment across each of these 5 key life pillars. And one thing you might take away from that is you might realize that your least fulfillment is in one of the pillars. So instead of beating yourself up over feeling unfulfilled, you can then discover that maybe the unfulfilled part of your life is just in that one pillar. And all the 4 other pillars are doing okay. So now you know where to concentrate, or maybe it's 2 of the 5 pillars. Hopefully it's not all 5
Yeah.
pillars, right? But the self-awareness of where you lack fulfillment gives you the ability to be more disciplined about where you can go focus your energy on improving your fulfillment.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed our conversation. I learned a lot. I learned happiness, fulfillment, and the 5 pillars. Now, where can people find you? Where can they get that study? Let them know where to find you.
Yeah, so my website is midlifefulfilled.com. If you go there, you'll notice that I'm taking these principles and I'm applying them in a leadership context. I've developed a framework called the Fulfillment-Centric Leadership Framework. I'm taking that to businesses to really empower their employees to be self-aware of these 5 pillars and empower their leaders to lead through the lens of fulfillment. So everything is at midlifefulfilled.com.
Awesome. Same Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff too.
Well, my Instagram is my name. All my social is my name, Bernie Borges, Borges. So Instagram, LinkedIn are the 2 primary places where I hang out.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast. And guys, start implementing these 5 pillars today, and we'll see you on the next episode.